Hey guys, it's Jack. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to be making a video of my adventures in the Sundance 2024 Film Festival. I did the whole entire virtual aspect of the festival, and I watched about 10 movies, a lot of them just from Friday all the way up to Sunday. So it was like a really crazy entire weekend. I've done it before, so instead of doing like 10 movies all together, I'm just gonna either pick one of the best that I've seen at the festival, and then I'll just like do a video on one of those films individually instead of doing it all together. So I think that's like the best plan instead of just compacting everything into one. And maybe I can like get a little bit more views because I need more views. But yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to be reviewing A Real Pain, directed by Jesse Eisenberg. So Jesse Eisenberg has directed this film. This is his second film. His first film was When You Finish Saving the World, which was starring Finn Wolfhard and Julianne Moore, and it was from last year. And I remember watching it, and I wasn't really the biggest fan of it, mainly because of the fact that it dealt with like this teenager boy who wanted to be a podcaster, but also was very like snarky, and like he didn't understand a lot of like the intricacies of just life in general, and he was just very whiny. I didn't really like Jesse Eisenberg's like direction in that movie. It was like very whiny, kind of all over the place and jumbled. But that was like last year. So compared to this new film, A Real Pain, which is completely a step up from his last movie, in my opinion. I know a lot of people who've seen this film at the Sundance Film Festival physically and virtually have agreed with this and agreed with what I've said. So just going way back to what this film is actually about, it's mostly about like these two brothers. They're Jewish brothers, and one of them is married and the other one is kind of not married and doing his own thing. And they haven't seen each other for the past couple of years. So both of them decide to create a plan to go on vacation to Poland, where they're just gonna like hang out with this group of people who are really into the Jewish culture, the religion. And from there, they all go on this like little kind of like birthright trip across Poland through several key places in Poland, dealing with the Holocaust. And these brothers, at first, like they're trying to like reconnect with each other, either through the stories they had back then when they were young with their mother and their grandmother, all the way to where they're physically and mentally at in terms of just like life in general. You have Jesse Eisenberg, who plays one of the older brothers, and he's married. He has kids, and his kid is like really cool because he's like really into buildings and like floors and like just the idea of counting like steps and like buildings and just like how tall this building is or how short it is. And then you also have Kieran Culkin, who plays Benji, who is kind of just like this chill, kind of laid back person. He's kind of like the same character you would expect Kieran Culkin to play. He's mostly playing himself. He's pretty much playing the character from Succession, but he's not actually a complete asshole, and he's not like super rich. Instead, he's just kind of like full of himself, and he's more focused on himself instead of other people around him. And that causes conflict between Benji and David. David played by Jesse Eisenberg. And like I said, from there, like the two like clash. In an earlier scene, you get to see Benji deal with one of his strong emotions, which is being caring of the Jewish culture that they're like living in terms of where they're going at in Poland. There's an earlier scene where they're at like this train, and it's this whole thing where they're sitting in front of a train, they're sitting like in first class, and Benji kind of like has this like epiphany type of thing in his mind of like, oh, well, why are we like sitting in the front of a train? Like back then, like the Jews used to like sit in the back of the train. All the shit happened, and like the Holocaust, and just like everything like starts to like bubble into like Benji's mind. And from that scene alone, from him kind of like freaking out a little bit, that's where the kind of like the conflict starts with Benji and David. And then from there, it turns into kind of like this situation where David has to control Benji from being like completely like out of place in terms of the whole entire trip. And then just also there's moments where Benji starts to kind of criticize the travel planner, or the person who is guiding the travel and the trip, who is actually played by one of the actors from The White Lotus, Will Sharp. And he's basically himself also as well. He's the dry kind of British guide who is showing all of these like types of artifacts and just like stuff that happened during the Holocaust, but also he's doing it very dry, and he's not like giving like a lot of like life to the guide. So instead, you have this moment where Benji is getting like kind of irritated of the guide's kind of perception and like feeling of like the whole entire trip. So he gives him a suggestion to kind of like liven up the facts and all that, and kind of make it more kind of lively, like I said before. But yeah, like there's that moment in that movie where Benji kind of picks off a lot of like criticisms and just stuff that's happening around himself and around the people he's hanging out with. There's also moments where you'll have David just having like these really like existential kind of thoughts about like his life, where he's at in his life, and just him with Benji and just everything around it. I actually like really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's probably because Jesse Eisenberg has directed something that is pretty personal. Not only to him, but I think also to me, especially since I've actually gone through Birthright, which is basically a trip where you're going to Jerusalem and you're kind of like seeing all of like the significant like locations of Jewish culture. Of course, if you don't know, half of my family's Jewish, so it was like really nice to like do that for free and really enjoy all the historical aspects of Jerusalem. But then there's also moments in this film where they start to contemplate about their own self-being and their relationship with each other as brothers, and then just also the Jewish culture, not them being very super like into like the Jewish culture, but like they're still religious, which is also kind of a thing that's going on with younger Jewish people in terms of like, are you like really going to like all these like significant like milestones, or just stuff that you're traditionally supposed to do in the Jewish religion, or are you doing it differently? Like there's a lot of questions about that. And then also just in general, it's also mostly just a film that feels like a family film, and it feels like something that Jesse Eisenberg has gone through personally, and I really dig it. And I think his writing and his direction and actually his acting is like amazing in this. Like I think this is probably like one of my favorite like Jesse Eisenberg performances since maybe The Social Network. He's playing himself, but like also he's very vulnerable, and like he has a lot of like great scenes. There's also a moment where they're at like this not diner, but like this restaurant. And there's a moment where these two characters, David and Benji, start to break. Benji starts to get irritated about like a lot of the stuff that happened with his grandmother. And then that just reacts into like this whole kind of like freak out scene, and he just leaves out of like a fit. And then David has this moment where he starts to like monologue about his existential crisis and like his feelings about his brother, and just all of that, just like that's like the moment where the film kind of like closes in, and you kind of like get the sense of like all these characters and like what they're going through. And then after that scene, the rest of the film kind of plays out still straightly, but like you feel like the weight of each character as they went through that particular existential crisis. But yeah, like I really loved this movie, and I think it's mad early. It's like really early. It's like literally January, but I'll be thinking about this movie for the rest of the year. And I think that's why it's probably going to be, I think, the first best film of 2024. So yeah, like I really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4.5 on Letterboxd. I'm dying to see it again. I know Sundance only does the 5-hour window when you start the movie, so I can't wait to check this out again. Searchlight has it, and I hope it's coming out this spring, summer, maybe fall. But yeah, really, really, really dig this.